Yo, back once again. I'm just going to do a quick review of Marvel's Eternals. I've been trying to do this review for like 10 million times, and I just been all over the place. In short, man, this film is one big mess. I don't think this film works. This film is a pretty much one big letdown. One of my main problems with this movie is the pacing. The pacing is very disjointed. You go from present day and then you jump into the past. Then you jump back to present day again, then you jump back to the past. And every time that they do that, when they jump back to the past, you spend a long ass time in the past before it jumps to present day again. It's not like one quick flashback scene and it jumps to present. Like, no, you're spending like, it feels like freaking half an hour in the past and then it jumps to present day. So you almost get lost in this world because you're like, okay, I'm okay, they're in Babylon, they're in Mesopotamia. So I'm like, okay, this whole setting is going to take place around this time setting. No, then it jumps to present day. Then it's like, well, damn, man, I was just getting used to this whole environment and shit. Now we just jump back to present day again. Like, and then it just jumps back to the past and it does the same thing over and over throughout this whole entire film, man. And like I said, it just doesn't work. It's just so disjointed. It just takes you out the film, to me. And I think that if this movie was like an hour and 40 minutes, if it was much tighter, it would have been a much better film. But for what we got, it's just these long-ass, drawn-out scenes that goes nowhere. And this whole entire movie, there's no build-up. There's no, like, oh, like something's coming, like you don't feel like you're supposed to feel like this big threat because the big threat is supposed to be like this new celestial emerging out the earth and wiping out the earth, but you don't feel that. And that's because the movie didn't build up to that point. It had no build up, none. And even towards the end, when you're supposed to focus on this new celestial emerging out the earth, it's just like, okay, where the hell is the celestial? You kind of like forget about it at one point because it focuses on a whole nother plot point that happens. And then it's just like, wait, what happened to the celestial? And then the celestial shows up and it's like, oh yeah, they're supposed to stop that. Yeah. This film doesn't work, man. And I just think that the casting overall, the chemistry to me does not work at all with this film. Does not. I just think that the cast of itself is just this mishmash of representation. And you can see that they're focused on, okay, we got to get this type of person in this role and that type of, they wanted every like ethnic background to be represented in this film. And I felt like that was their main focus. They didn't really focus on, okay, does these actors mesh well together? Does these actors portraying these characters, do they play this character well? It was just all about like representation. Like, okay, we got to get this black dude. We got to get this we got to show Asian representation. We got to show gay representation. We got to show black representation. We got to show Indian representation. We got to show female representation. We got to show the non-binary representation. We got to have all of them come together and yeah, super group. You know, that's what it felt like to me. Like, it wasn't forced in the film, I will say. Like, you do like kind of like just, you don't really think about it, but like afterwards when you watch the film and you see how these characters like interact with one another, to me they just don't work. I just don't buy the chemistry at all. And to be honest with you, none of the main cast I was really feeling like that. There's not one main character in this film where I'm like, yeah, I really like them the most. Like, all of these characters were pretty like boring to me. I didn't really find them interesting at all. The main story of itself, it is interesting, but I just don't feel like they should have focused on the origin story a little bit more, like the origin story of creation and the celestials and go into the science of it. That's what I wanted to see, man. I wanted to see, like, you know, how these species came to be. And they did touch on that in certain flashback scenes, but it was couple scenes here and there. They didn't really focus on that. And I thought that this film was going to really focus on the origin story of the superheroes. And of course, this is where you get the X-Men and stuff. And I thought that they were going to hint at the X-Men in this movie, because the Eternals are a big part of the X-Men. This is where the X-Men comes from. This is where mutants come from. So I thought that we were going to get our first glimpse of some kind of mutant, like a mutant origin or something like that. I thought that we were going to get that. We don't get that. So I'm still waiting on that X-Men, you know, okay, when do they show up? When do we get the hint and the clue that the X-Men and Fantastic Four are going to show up, man? Like when is that going to happen, Marvel? I think that it should have happened in this movie, because like I said, you introduced the Eternals, and the Eternals are a very important key part in the X-Men. And I think even Fantastic Four, if I'm not mistaken. So what's up? Like, they should have been introduced in this film. Some kind of origin, the mutant origin story should have been introduced in this film. And like I said, they should have focused on the origin story of the Celestials and the Eternals. But the way they did it, it just didn't work, man. I just felt like they should have committed to one particular time period. So if you was gonna do an Eternals movie, it should have took place all in the past. It should have been like, okay, most of this movie is gonna take place way in the past, and then we're just gonna gradually go to present day. Or if you wanted to do the whole movie in present day, that's fine. And then you could probably, you know, sprinkle in a little flashback scenes here and there, but it's just real quick and snappy. Not these long, drawn-out flashback scenes where you get lost in the flashback, and then when it jumps to present day, you're like, well, wait a minute, where the heck did that come from? And it just throws you off. But that's what they decided to do with this movie, and I'm just like, why? And like I said, the ending was the worst. Like the last act of the film was the worst part, because you could tell at that point they just given up, and you could just tell that the movie was going nowhere. Like they didn't know what the hell to do, because throughout the movie it wasn't building up to anything. Nothing. There was no build up, no nothing. Yeah, you're supposed to, you know, feel this big threat of this celestial coming out the earth and wiping all of humanity out existence, but in the end you're just like, that's it. Like, this big celestial, like, you don't feel the threat. And because the movie didn't really build up to that threat, because something else happens towards the end, and you're just like, well, they just threw a monkey wrench in there. Now we're focused on this shit. So what the hell is this? And then you have I'm not even going to go into it, but something else happens, and then you're just like, okay, what about the celestial that's supposed to be emerging out the earth? Now we got to deal with this, like, and also too, it just comes out of nowhere. You have certain character decisions, like certain characters flip, and then you're just like, wait, how did this happen? Like, there was no build up to this. Like, this just came out of nowhere, and this character all of a sudden turned bad for what? Like, where did this come from? Like, there's no inclination that this character had this, you know, this sort of feeling towards this other character, and then you see it play out, and then you're just like, wait, what? Like, what? And then they give this whole speech like, yeah, you know, I'm jealous of you because of this. And I'm like, where did all of this come from? Like, this just came out of nowhere. Yeah, I can see why this film bombed as far as like review scores go, because this film is one big mess. It doesn't work. This movie should have been way better than what it is, but it wasn't. And with the direction that Marvel's taking right now, I don't know where this whole phase is supposed to go. Like, with the first three phases, you already knew where it was leading up to. You already knew that Thanos was the big threat, that everything was building up to the Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos. Like, but right now you're just like, okay, what is this building up to? Like, we have these movies, but they're almost self-contained in a way. I think a lot of the movies that came out so far now, they're more of its own thing than all the other Marvel films that came out in the past. Because all the other Marvel films that came out in the past, yeah, they were like kind of their own movie, but they tied in so well with the other movies because they introduced certain things from other movies. And then at the end, they will give you an Easter egg like, oh, this is what you need to look out for in the next movie or in another movie in the future. And it all like blended so well together. It was just like this one big cohesive family of films that just worked so well together because, yeah, it worked as a standalone movie, but then they tied in other things, you know, it was like little pieces of the puzzle. It was this big puzzle piece that had to be put together, and all the little movies were a part of it, and they all introduced certain things that were, but I know it's early in this whole phase 4 thing, but right now I'm just feeling like, okay, what is the big, like, okay, when is the X-Men gonna be introduced? Like, they still haven't, they haven't said anything about the X-Men. I think Loki may have hinted at the X-Men or something like that. I haven't watched that series yet, so I gotta delve into that. So maybe that series had certain things about, you know, X-Men and Fantastic Four. I'm not sure, but everything else that I watch, I'm just like, okay, where is this going? Like with Marvel, like one of the things that I loved about the MCU is like they had, like, you knew the big bad guy that they was gonna lead up to at the end. You knew where they were heading to. With this one, it just feels like, I don't know. It's just, they're just doing their own thing in each movie. And they're introducing certain things, but you're just like, okay, what's this all about? Like, okay, I see this character pop up. I'm like, okay, like, it seems interesting. You know, it just seems like one big mystery so far. I'm just trying to put the pieces together, and it's just like, okay, one, you know, in Shang-Chi at the end, you know, Captain Marvel and the Hulk shows up, and they're talking about the origins of the rings and shit. And you're like, okay. And then in this film, another character shows up, you know, and you're like, okay, you know, but it doesn't go together. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not going together for me. It's just, I'm just like, okay, Marvel, where you going? Where you're going with this? And I don't know where they're going. And with all these movies so far, to me, it's just been lackluster, man. They haven't been interesting at all. I've been really disappointed with a lot of Marvel products this year, especially on the movie front. Black Widow did not work for me. Shang-Chi, I would say out of the 3, of course, it is the best movie out of the 3 that I've seen so far. But even with that, I'm just like, I didn't really feel Shang-Chi like that. I just felt like it was overrated to me. It's not as great as everybody makes it out to be. To me, I'm not a big fan of that movie. There are certain things that I do like about that movie, but overall, to me, I wouldn't watch it again. It's good enough for a one-time watch, and that's it. And with this one, I will say, even though I am disappointed with this film, and I feel like it's one big mess, for some strange reason, I will watch it again just to see, okay, let me try to watch this again to really get this movie, like to see if I will like it. Because there are certain aspects that I do find interesting in this movie. So I will watch it again. I'll probably watch it again this weekend. But after the second time, I think I'll be done. And it's just so disappointing, man, because I'm big into comic book movies, and I'm a big MCU guy, and I was really looking forward to Phase 4 and what Marvel had in store. I was really looking forward to seeing that. Like, I want to see the X-Men by now. Like, this long build up to the X-Men. Like, yo, just give us something. Give us, like, when are they gonna show up? That's what I'm waiting for. Maybe in Spider-Man No Way Home. Maybe that's when I will get my first glimpse of Fantastic Four or X-Men. Like, that's my only hope right now. My only hope is Spider-Man being good, because what I'm getting right now is pretty boring. Like, I'm bored right now, and I'm not as enthusiastic as I used to be watching MC. Like, whenever a Marvel movie comes out, I'm not as enthusiastic as I used to be. And that's saying a lot, because I am one of the people, when Marvel movies come out, I gotta see it on opening day. There's no like, okay, I'm waiting until next week. No, I'm like, I gotta see either Thursday night or Friday. Like that, I'm that much of an MCU stan. Like, but right now it's just like my interest in these movies is going down, and I'm not really as enthusiastic as seeing a Marvel movie as I used to. And you know, that's sad to say, man. So hopefully Marvel picks it up, but right now it's disappointing me, man. And this one is another one that just disappointed me. I was really looking forward to the Eternals. I was one of the few people that really wanted to see the Eternals. I didn't mind seeing the Eternals movie. Everybody else was like, I don't want the Eternals. I was one of the few that wanted it. And what I got was, well, very lackluster and a big letdown. And one of the reasons why I wanted to see the Eternals, because I know that the X-Men comes from the Eternals. That was like the origins of the mutants. It relies in the Eternals storyline. And I thought that this was the movie that was going to introduce us to mutants. But it doesn't. It kind of doesn't. I mean, maybe it does. Maybe in certain scenes you got to really pay attention, but from what I've seen, it don't really seem that way. So I'm still waiting on the X-Men drop. I'm still waiting on some kind of a name drop. Somebody to say mutant. If somebody says mutant, I'll be like, okay, yes, they're coming. We got to see the X-Men, man. Or a Fantastic Four. That's what I'm waiting on. I want to hear the Reed Richards drop. I want to hear Fantastic. I want to see, when are they coming, man? Maybe in Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. But I'm growing impatient, man, because, you know, they bought out Fox for quite a long time now. It's been, what, almost 2 years since they bought out Fox? I think almost 3. So it's like, okay, when is it time that you're going to like, okay, I understand that we're not going to get an X-Men movie or a Fantastic Four movie until like 2024, 2025. I'm fine with that. But at least give us a hint. Like, give us something. Like, we're still waiting. And it's just like, Marvel, man, you're dragging your feet. You're dragging your feet. So, overall with the Eternals, it's not really that good of a movie. I just feel like this movie is not very well done. The pacing is just off. It's very weird. It's very long. It's very boring. It's a drag. And if you watch it, you're probably going to be bored to death, because it's just the movie goes nowhere, and it has really no clear direction. And you see that in like the last act of the film really, really, really tells it. Like, you see it in the last act of the film. You could just see that the writers and the directors is like, we pretty much ran ourselves into a wall and we don't know how to get past this wall, so we're just gonna do we're just gonna throw some shit in there and just call it a day. And that's how it ends. So I think that's gonna wrap up my review. Till my next one, man. Spider-Man No Way Home, please deliver, man. I need a Marvel win, man, as far as movies go. We're 0 for 3 so far, man. That's not good. That's not good, Marvel. That's not good. I'll see you later.